If you are working the early shift today, or just awake joining those of us working the early shift today, you might also be feeling a little more alive, a little more engaged thanks to that extra hours of sleep for the start of Standard Time, which began at 2 this morning. And while that might feel great right now, it might not seem that way come March, when we spring forward for daylight saving time and lose an hour of sleep. Now, a big push is on in a lot of places across the country to end this clock chaos once and for all. NBC's Joe Fryer looked into it for our Sunday Focus.
This morning, as you set back the clocks, you likely feel refreshed thanks to that extra hour of sleep. The perks of falling back. Until you remember the price you'll pay later today when the sun falls back 1 hour earlier. Welcome to the beginning of Standard Time. It comes after nearly 8 months of daylight saving time, a period that begins in March when we spring forward, losing an hour of sleep but gaining sunlight, that cherished summer commodity. First floated by a New Zealand scientist, it was Germany that became the first country to enact daylight saving time back in 1916. 2 years later, America followed, making it a wartime measure to save coal.
The idea was it would conserve energy, it would promote national security.
The U.S. eventually made it permanent in 1966, an idea embraced by the business community because more daylight at night means more folks shopping on their way home from work. But one group that did not reap many rewards, farmers, despite what you may have heard.
One of the biggest misconceptions about daylight savings time is that farmers are somehow behind it when they actually hate it.
In fact, they've long lobbied against it. The loss of morning light makes their work harder, and the animals don't adjust easily. They're not alone, says behavioral scientist Vanessa Hill.
A lot of people hate it, but it actually can wreak havoc on our health in a lot of different ways.
Folks waking up this morning might think, I feel great. I got that extra hour of sleep. Is it sort of all downhill from here?
When we change our routine, that can make us feel jet lagged, even though we're not leaving our home and we're not traveling anywhere.
She says during Standard Time, we get less sunlight at night, which means more time with the artificial lights in our homes.
Which are really bright and really blue, and they disrupt everything from our sleep cycle to even our metabolism, and we can start eating differently as well.
Studies have found these biannual clock shifts put people at higher risk for heart attacks, strokes, and fatal car crashes. 2 states actually don't change their clocks, Arizona and Hawaii, an idea that appeals to 7 out of 10 Americans and a growing number of politicians.
Mr. President, I come to the floor today because it is time to make daylight savings time permanent.
At the federal level, a bill called the Sunshine Protection Act, which would do just that, has bipartisan support.
Americans want more sunshine and less depression.
But for now, we'll have to fall back on this century-old tradition.
We are supposed to be a union, and that means that we have to be unified on most things, including the time.
And Joe is joining us now live. Joe, good morning. It is so good to see you, my friend. And I have to tell you, I think that one thing that I've learned over the last year or so is that parents of young kids are also dealing with this, chaos that comes from changing the clocks, bedtime routines, etc. Talk a little bit more about who's for and who's against this, because you talk about businesses, right, being the ones that are proponents of this, but then there are those who are lobbying against having the time change happen in Washington, right?
Yeah, that's right. So first of all, Hallie, let's talk about the value. Many argue if we're going to do away with switching clocks twice a year, then we should just do daylight saving year-round and scrap Standard Time. Years ago, both the golf and barbecue industries testified before Congress, saying the additional hours of sunlight positively impacted their businesses to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars. Now, we should note, we used to have a 50-50 split. So it was 6 months of standard, 6 months of daylight savings. But over the last 3 decades or so, daylight saving time has become the standard, taking up the majority of the calendar year, about 8 months. As to whether we're actually going to see it take up the whole calendar, 19 states have passed legislation or resolutions calling for that. But ultimately, it's up to Congress. And as you know, Hallie, things move slowly. So for now, we're just going to continue to fall back, then spring forward.
All right. I'm looking forward to the sun setting at 2 this afternoon here today. Joe Fryer, thank you so much.
Exactly.
It's good to see you.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Find your favorite recipes, celebrity interviews, uplifting stories, shop our favorite deals, and so much more with the Today app. Download it now.